Hello, hello. Welcome to the regular Ubuntu On Air Ubuntu Community Team Hangout. God, completely fluffed that, didn't I? I'm completely out of the practice of doing this. I've clearly not done it for a few weeks. So I'm Alan Pope. I work on the community team at Canonical, and with me is Michael Hall, who is also on the community team. Hello, Mike.
Hello. Hello.
And we do this every week, and we mix it up with different members of the community team. And the idea behind this is that you can ask us anything you like. You can do that very easily by going to ubuntuonair.com. That's all one word, ubuntuonair.com. And there's a little chat box at the bottom of the screen. Or alternatively, if you've got a real IRC client, then you can connect to the Freenode network, and the IRC channel is ubuntu-on-air. If you prefix your question with the word question, then we will see it. It'll be highlighted for us on our machines. That makes it a little bit easier. And to give you time to put some questions in, we'll just have a quick chat, and then we'll start on your questions. Feel free to start the questions as early as you can, because often people don't ask their questions until right at the very end, just as we're saying goodbye, because there's a slight delay between us talking and you seeing this video. So yeah, don't leave it till the last minute. If you have any questions, feel free to fire them at us. If they're support type questions, then we might throw those somewhere else, because yeah, this is not a good support avenue. We're not going to have you pasting log files and stuff to us during this session, but it's good for asking general questions and so on. So, Mike, you've been busy the last few days.
I have been, yes. So I drove up to the Southeast LinuxFest, which is up in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm in Florida, so that was about a 9-hour drive each way for me. But it was a good show. We enjoyed it. UbuCon on Friday, which was nice. The first UbuCon that we've had itself in a couple of years. The last one, I think, was run by Amber Grainer 2 or 3 years ago. So it was good to have that back. I really appreciate the giving us that. So thank you to Jeremy Sands and everybody else who was involved in helping set that up and run that. It was a good show. And then we had a booth also there Saturday and Sunday afterwards. And I actually had some members of my Florida Loco team drive up and help me with that. So Chris Foley came up and helped. And then Aaron Honeycutt has, he was there all weekend long helping me with the booth, and I really appreciate that. Couldn't have done it without him. He's a honey bun IRC, so everybody please come in. Thank you for that. We had a bunch of I had 2 Nexus 4s that I had for, I don't remember what I had them for now. Some show. Anyway, had a couple of Nexus 4s there on display, which got a lot of attention. I flashed the latest data image onto those, so they had all the new goodness, except tail rotation. That landed Monday, the day after itself. So I spent all weekend showing off these phones, and then this really cool feature lands the very next day. So next show. Anyone's at next show, we'll be able to see that.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I think we're getting some echo. I don't know if you've got 2 microphones switched on or something, but there's some really bad echo.
Yeah, something's changed with the Pulse audio. Now it doesn't automatically switch back and forth. Let me see what I can do here.
Ah, that sounds better.
It does? I haven't changed anything yet.
Yeah, it did sound better. I think sometimes just going into the audio settings thing just might do it, but I'm now getting echo from you. Sorry about this, everyone.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can.
Trying to figure out how to mute the
microphone.
No, I think you muted the wrong one there. So I'll dive into one of the questions while Mike's sorting his audio out. First question is from Nick. From Neklesh saying, where's your cat? Are they camera shy? So, yeah, often my cats are sat here. We've just had to put a couple of blankets because they're mucky pups, and they make a horrible mess behind me. So I've kicked them out. They're somewhere else. I don't know where. So, Mike, how's your audio now?
I think I may have figured it out. I muted my headphone.
Nope. Still
now?
Three for me.
Still nothing?
Can't really tell until you speak. Can't hear you at all now. Because you've muted yourself. Sorry about this, everyone. So I'll move on to the next question while Mike's sorting his audio out. From Bowler Frederick, who asks, can you explain why the BQ5 is a convergence phone exactly? Well, I can tell you the answer to that very easy. It's not. The E5 is not a convergence phone as such. The convergence device will land later in the year. We might talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But just to clarify, there's currently two BQ phones on the market right now. I'm echoing back from you now, Mike.
Is my audio okay, though?
I don't know. I can't tell until you speak.
I was speaking. Right now I'm speaking.
Okay.
Carry on.
So there's the BQ E4.5, which is this device here. And then there's the BQ E5, which is slightly larger, much the same kind of device. Larger, higher resolution display, but it's much the same kind of device as the BQ E4.5. Later in the year, we'll have a converged device. And what we mean by that is the device that is powerful enough that you can plug in an external display and use a keyboard and mouse with it. And it can adapt between what you would traditionally consider a phone, a computer in your pocket, and a desktop, as in you could use a keyboard and mouse and an external display and use it like you would use a desktop PC. So, you can browse the internet on it and type long form documents on it rather than tapping them out on a little keyboard like this. And then, unplug it when you're finished and walk away and it carries on being a phone. But that'll be a bit later in the year. We haven't finalized the exact device and specs and when that will happen, but a bit later in the year. And I think we have announced that it's BQ that will be making that. But it's not either of the devices that are currently on the market.
So I was talking to Will Cook. That's better? Good. Just abandoned the headset altogether because that wasn't working. So I talked to Will Cook. I've got an Nexus 4, and he suggested I get one of these. It's a slim port adapter. And it's got the HDMI on one end and micro USB on the other. And I can plug my phone into my TV and get a mirror, at least, that my phone's screen on in there. It's got an extra micro USB thing there, so I'm going to try and, because I don't have a Bluetooth mouse or keyboard to try Bluetooth with, so I'm going to try plugging in USB stuff to get that to work.
You're still echoing.
Oh, well. I'm going to blame Google Hangouts because I've unplugged everything.
Okay, maybe restart.
So yeah, let me try that.
Okay, you do that. And the other device that's just about to come out is this one, which is the Meizu device, and that will arrive. It's already arrived in China. It will arrive in Europe soon, very soon. I think I saw an announcement earlier on today that there are a bunch of insiders who will get their MX4, Meizu MX4, very soon. I believe they're being shipped out from the London office today, in fact. So the insiders are a group of people who we invited to London for the BQ launch and offered them a phone that they could play with, use as their daily driver, maybe develop apps, maybe just use it as a normal user would. But the important thing is that they can review it, they can make videos, they can post photos online, comments, and so on. But we're not telling them what to say. We give them the device, and they, blog about it, which they might say, how great it is, or they might point out flaws, or they might point out bugs. that's entirely up to them. We don't want to control what they're saying. So they had an E4.5 for some while, and they'll be getting an MX4 very soon as well. So within the next few days, you should see blog posts from people in the Ubuntu community talking about the MX4 as well, and how that differs, and maybe unboxings if they want to do that. That's up to them. How are we doing now, Mike?
I don't know. How's it sound now?
It's still kind of choppy. It's hard to tell until you say a long sentence.
I'll stick to what word answer then. Problem solved.
No, it's completely terrible. Unfortunately. So, I don't know what's broken on your laptop. I'm running Wiley here, the development release, and it's working perfectly fine for me. So, I don't know what you've done there. So
I don't know. Load the network quality settings to see if that helps. Is it any better now?
That seems to be, yeah. Okay. Sorry, you were telling us about UbuCon at the weekend.
Yeah, so there was a lot of interest in the phones, and also quite a bit of interest in community stuff. So I gave 2 presentations at UbuCon, one of which was about UbuCons themselves and loco teams. And there's some interest in restarting some of those loco teams. So if you're in North Carolina, South Carolina, or Georgia, there are some people who want to restart those loco teams. If you're interested, please contact those mailing lists also and get involved. Those teams used to be quite active. Unfortunately, the people who were active in them had to move on, and nobody was around to take their place. But hopefully that's going to change now, and we'll get some more activity out of those teams, which will be nice. I know the Florida team has become more active recently. Again, I need to thank Aaron Honeycutt for that, because he's been doing a fantastic job down in South Florida. It'll be good to see our neighbors up to the north getting more active again, too. Oh, and all the videos from Southeast Linux Fest are on YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com/user/Southeast Linux Fest, all of the talks have been recorded and are available to watch there.
Yeah, I strongly, there's a couple of good ones that I've watched already. One was yours, which I really enjoyed. Even though I know a fair amount of it, it was nice to hear it from someone else's perspective. So I enjoyed listening to that. And also Rick Spencer's, where he does a kind of retrospective look back, and he's kind of brutally honest about some of the things and the decisions that were made in the past about Ubuntu, and brings a kind of light-hearted perspective to some of the things in Ubuntu. They're both an hour long. There's another one I haven't watched yet, which is Ken Van Dyne's talk. I'm looking forward to watching that one later. So yeah, they're all on the Southeast Linux Fest YouTube channel.
Yeah,
definitely worth a watch.
And we had a guy, Mauricio, who gave a talk on Android, or not Android, Arduino, which was really cool, and showing his Arduino development workflow and how he uses virtual machines for that. And I've actually got an Arduino, and he's inspired me to try and actually do something with it instead of leaving it in a box.
Yeah, and not just a blinking LED. That would be good.
Oh, well, I'm going to start with the blinking LED. Work my way up from there.
That's the hello world of Arduino, is the blinking LED.
Baby steps.
So we've got a few questions coming in. Balloons asks, how many selfies did you take at Self?
I didn't take any selfies, but everybody who wanted to play with the camera, for some reason, wanted to take my picture instead of the table. And it was always unexpected. Like, I'd be mid-description of how it works, and they'd just hold the phone up to my face and snap a picture. So I look terrible in all of them.
So you've got a phone now with loads of pictures of yourself on. Brilliant.
Yes, I'm going to delete all of that before I ship them back to Canonical.
So there's a couple more questions. Here's one. I think is an interesting one, actually, from The Best, who asks, are you stressed now due to the announcement of the BQ Converge phone in developing the desktop interface of Unity 8 Ubuntu?
I think we've been stressed over that for a little while, actually. I don't think it's new stress. I mean, we've known it's coming, there's been some work going on in previous cycles to prepare for the desktop, but we all knew it was going to come down to, you know, one cycle of really high frequency development to get it to a usable product. And we've gotten to that point now, and so we know it's coming. The device announcement, actually, the device announcement, I think, gives us a light at the end of the tunnel, because we know at the end, all of this work's actually going to be shipping on a device.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's I feel the same way. It's not so much stress as excitement.
Yeah.
And we're mapping out all the work that needs to be done, between now and then, whenever then is, sometime before the end of the year. And every so often I'll be, I don't know, out having a walk, or cooking dinner or something, and something will strike me that, oh, wouldn't it be good if we could do this, or we should really think about that, and have to make a little note of it. And that list is getting, quite long. So we're going to have to rationalize those lists of things that need to be done before the device ships. But luckily, we have people who do that for us, product managers who prioritize the feature set that's going to be there. So I think something that what my takeaway is, I wouldn't consider the very first Converge device to be like an LTS release, like that has everything there, all pre-configured, all pre-installed, everything done. I would imagine there being some gaps in functionality, and that over time we'll add those things in. There may be apps that are your favorite apps on your desktop or favorite apps on your mobile device that we don't have yet, or there might be use cases that we don't cover yet. I can think of a good one, Steam. Running Steam on an ARM device is probably not going to happen on day one. So there are certain use cases that we're probably not going to cover on day one. And I think if you're pragmatic and and excited by the new stuff, then you'll probably find it pretty interesting to play with.
Yeah, we're having to be very realistic about it. There's a lot of stuff in Unity 7 that we've got to recreate in Unity 8, and we know we're not going to get them all done by 15.10. So we're prioritizing our list of what we're going to work on to try and get the most use cases covered by 15.10, but we're not going to get them all. There's obviously going to be stuff that doesn't work. It's not going to be ready to replace Unity 7 for everybody. Right, but the goal is to make it actually usable so that people can start using it as their daily driver or frequent testing device, so that we can work out the rest of the bugs and the corner cases. Yeah,
and there are bits that are being added as time goes on. Some of you may have noticed we put out these over-the-air updates, OTA updates, and one went out yesterday, OTA 4, and OTA 4 contained a load of updates and fixes for various things. Bug fixes and so on, but as time goes on, each of those over-the-air updates will incrementally add more and more of these features that we're heading towards the final Converge device in later this year, should we say. So it won't all land in one big lump. Some of those features will start landing throughout the year as we get towards that device.
That has been the best part about using the Ubuntu phone. I've been using it for almost 2 years now, and just knowing that every week or so, depending on your channel, there's a new update that's bringing in new functionality. Just this morning, I updated and I got shell rotation. There's been stuff that landed in the browser, like private browsing mode and the ability to switch the search provider. That landed, I didn't even know it had landed until somebody said something on Google Plus that it was there. I check and, oh yeah, that feature's there. So this kind of constant improvement, daily or weekly, is really nice to have.
Right, and that happens at the app level as well. We uploaded a bunch of app updates to the store yesterday as well, including things like the Reminders app that's been in the phone as a built-in app for a long time. We renamed it to Notes because it actually replaces the original Notes application, which we deprecated, abandoned. So we don't use that Notes app anymore. We've now renamed Reminders, which is a lot more rich functionality and better supported than the original Notes app. And those are little updates that we're constantly putting into the store. So if you bought your BQ phone as a curiosity to see what they were like, and it's been sat in a drawer or turned off and it's not your main phone, and you're just booting it up every so often to see what they're like, then if you boot it up every other week or so, you're bound to see some updates come through. So what's the next question?
I think it's from the Fish. It says, is there a way to communicate stock apps or OS improvement ideas visually without learning QML? If so, what should I use and who would I send them to afterwards? So I think he means like design mockups. Where can he do that, and where does he send that to get people's attention?
So my suggestion would be no, you don't have to do it in QML. Mockups can be done in anything really. We've seen some people sketch them up on pencil and paper, and some people use tools like Pencil or what was that online one that people use?
I think it was mockups actually, like a
mock
or something.
But also there's a really nice tool that was created by a community designer called Lucas, who created it in Inkscape, and it's basically a big Inkscape workspace where you just drag the various components into a frame that looks like a mobile phone, and build up your UI, and then you could just extract those out as screenshots, for example, and those we sometimes see people creating those mockups on the Google Plus community. There's also a Reddit community of app developers, and we also have an Ubuntu phone mailing list on Launchpad. So it depends what you're aiming for and which platform you're most comfortable sharing your stuff on. If you're happy using Google Plus, then join the Google Plus app developer community, Ubuntu app developer community, and post your screenshots in there, or your mockups or your sketches, and you'll get feedback from developers, both community developers and canonical platform developers, and us in the community team as well. We love seeing those kind of things in there. So whichever platform you're most comfortable with,
I would definitely recommend the Inkscape one though. I use that when I redesign my Reddit app. I think it's on GitHub now, and it does make it really easy because you just drag and drop these Inkscape items, and you can resize them and change them however you want, and it makes it really easy, but it looks really nice also.
Yeah, I used it when I was helping Filippo redesign the Terminal app a few months back, and it was great for just designing the settings screen. I just wanted to change the way the settings screen looks, so we created a little mock-up in Inkscape and emailed them backwards and forwards, and it was great. It's a really good tool for an open source project where everyone's working remotely. Yeah, I hope that gives you some ideas, the Fish, on how you can spread your design love. Next question is from MJ, who says, after today's phone updates, can you tell us what's going to be included in the next update pack? That's a good question, actually.
The next OTA update, I think, is planned for sometime next month, and it'll be OTA 5.
Mid-July.
I think shell rotation is probably going to be in that one. If that didn't make it into OTA 4, I don't think it did.
Yeah, so shell rotation is certainly one big one. The other one that I know is being worked on, but I don't know if we'll land in 5 or 6, and that's putting the media controls back in the sound menu. So on the device, if you're playing music at the moment, you have to unlock the phone and get back into the music app in order to be able to switch tracks backwards and forwards. And it's something we've always wanted to put back into the sound menu. Is at the moment you can drag down from the top. Sorry, my Telegram's going mad with messages, so I would show you that, but it's very difficult with being. So the sound menu looks a bit like that, but what we want to do is add the controls to be able to easily switch tracks in there. So I think there's it would be good to land that either in OTA 5 or 6.
I think there's also work on letting you enable Wi-Fi hotspot on the phone itself. So if you have a plan that lets you do that, I think it's supported in Network Manager itself already. So the work now is just on exposing a way for you to do that as a user.
Right. But other than that, there's the usual bug fixes. People finding glitches with the latest release. It's worth pointing out actually the OTA that just went out, OTA 4, is based on Vivid, which is Ubuntu 15.04, and the previous release. So if you'd bought one of these devices, it was running Utopic, which is 14.10 based image. So overnight, some thousands of phones have switched from running Ubuntu 14.10 Utopic to Ubuntu 15.04 Vivid, and I think that's pretty cool.
Right. I mean, from what I can tell, it's been a seamless release update across all these devices.
Yeah, we've had a couple of reports, but nothing. A small percentage of reports of people having problems, but nothing significant.
Right. And from the screenshots I've seen, that was only like a 200 something meg download too for that complete release update.
Yeah, I think it depends because it's a binary diff. It depends what image you were on as to what you get next. But yeah, for the one I did, it was 280 meg or something like that compressed, which surprised a few people. I think they were expecting it to be about 400 meg. So
yeah. I mean, I've been on the dailies, so my last update was only like 20 megs. But for a complete release update to happen that easily and be that small, that's pretty amazing, really.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like that. So yeah, keep an eye out. If you look on, if you join the Ubuntu phone mailing list, there's updates from Lucas, who works on the landing team, and he gives daily updates as to what's landing, what's landed, and if there's any major gotchas that they're working on right now. But let me actually, I can have a quick look and see if there's anything else that's interesting that should be coming up soon. I know one thing that's being worked on by the Unity team is we've had a lot of feedback from users about navigation, specifically about navigation between applications and between scopes. And I know that the design team and the Unity developers are working on making that better. So I think this is one of the I've mentioned this before. It's one of the things that is a very positive thing and can be very negative about the way we develop the Ubuntu phone. Is one of the bonuses is you get to see everything every day, warts and all the updates. So if anything is a bit janky or not quite 100% perfect, you get to see it. We don't hold everything back and then do a big release, 6 months later. So that can be a positive and a negative, because you get to see all the warts and all, but equally you get to see everything as it's rolling forward. And so people are using the phone and discovering issues, and we're working on fixing those over time. Next question.
From Swavek, he asks, BQ Edge when? Microsoft is just about to launch a converged phone.
Later this year.
Yeah, later this year. We might beat Microsoft. I think their next phone update is planned for October, if I remember right. And I'm not entirely sure that that's actually going to have their Continuum stuff running on it or not. They were kind of vague last I was reading about when exactly that was going to be available. But yeah, we know that's coming from them, that they're working towards it, and Google's working towards, merging Chrome OS and Android. So everybody's going in the same direction now. We're fortunate in that we started going this direction years before everybody else. So we still have a bit of a head start, but we are also a tiny company compared to Microsoft and Google. So it'll be a fun race to the end of this year. And again, it's not who does it first either. It's who does it best.
Right. Absolutely. And moving on, next question is from Stoneflut, who says, question, if it wasn't asked already, it seems some features some features planned for OTA 4 got postponed at the very last minute, like keyboard layouts and Wi-Fi tethering. Do you know why? No. Is a short answer. I don't know why those two specific things were bumped to the next OTA. I know that it can be quite brutal because developers can work on features and fixes, and they can go through a lot of QA, and there can be a cycle of going back to the developer to fix things and come back through QA, and that can be quite time consuming. And all the while, the clock is ticking as we head towards the next OTA update. And we make, some commitments, like you heard earlier, we said, mid-July will be OTA 5. Well, if those keyboard updates or, Wi-Fi tethering or whatever feature it is isn't ready by then it doesn't get included. It's as simple as that, if it's not ready.
Right. And some things, like I know shell rotation has been being worked on for like 6 months now, and it would go through iterations of implementation, and then people would start to use it, and they would find, okay, there are these use cases that the designs didn't describe how to handle, and so it had to go back to design, and they'd have to figure out how to handle those use cases, and that would go back to be implemented, and then they'd go to user testing again, find something else, and it'd have to get kicked back to design. So there is a lot of back and forth that can happen on these things. We don't want to land anything in one of these OTAs until it's actually ready for end users, and we're ready to support it, going forward.
Right. I mean, that's why we have multiple channels. That's why we have devel and proposed channels that, brave souls can opt into if they really want to, but they've got to know that, sometimes that will break because that hasn't gone through rigorous QA. And, knowing that the OTA 4 went out yesterday and thousands of people updated their devices, though if we completely broke their experience, they'd come running to us, and they'd go and tell BQ. And we don't want to put people in that position of A, having a broken device, and B, having a negative effect on either Ubuntu or on BQ.
Right. All right, the next question is from Goats Lover. Says, I find it hard to type long messages on Ubuntu phone. Can I connect a keyboard? I don't know if that currently works. I know that it works in development branches because Will Cook has shown that off.
I don't know. Actually, I've never tried connecting a keyboard to my device. Try it and see.
Yeah. I think if it doesn't work now, it will work at some point in the future.
Right. Yeah. Well, it will have to. Very soon. Yes. Honeybun asks, any plans for a stock IRC client? No, not internally. We're not working on an IRC client. That doesn't stop someone else taking something like IRSSI or WeChat or one of the other console IRC clients, or indeed a Qt IRC client. I think there's one called Communicator, which was used on the N9, and porting that across, or packaging up and porting across. We haven't planned to do it. That would be a great one for a community person to do, because it's it's one of the missing puzzle pieces that a lot of developers and nerdy people quite like. I personally, I'm okay because I use IRSSI on a remote server. So it's not something that personally affects me, but I know a lot of people do like to have a locally installed IRC client on their device. Maybe a few community people could get together and look at the landscape of IRC clients and libraries and maybe pull something together. That would be super awesome.
Right. I know right now the app lifecycle kind of limits what you can do with chat clients, because we do suspend the process when it's in the background. But there's work going on now to provide a messaging framework to let you provide plugins to telepathy for different things. And I know there's a telepathy plugin for IRC. So maybe once that's in place, it'll be easier to integrate IRC into the existing messaging app. One thing I would love to see, though, is there's a Android IRC client being designed by some former designers from the Ubuntu project called Hermes that looks really, really nice. So if anyone can borrow their designs and work on an Ubuntu app for that, that would be nice to see.
Awesome. What's the next question?
I think it is from The Fish. Even though I'm not an Ubuntu insider, I would very much like to pretend that I am. Can we all just agree that this is the case, and then someone send me an MX4? Many thanks.
Nice try. Nice try.
Yes. Yes, I tell you what, if in a couple of months, if you send several hundreds of dollars to a specific manufacturer, they can put you on the select list and send you a phone.
It's not that select, to be fair.
Yeah.
Right, what's the next question? Oh, it's all scrolled off the screen. So the next question is from our friend Goats Lover. Is Ubuntu phone ready for my mum?
Depends on your mom.
I don't know your mum. I never claimed to. But I would imagine there are some mums and some dads and grandmothers, grandfathers who would be fine with Ubuntu. Right now, we have a small set of users, and many of them are tremendously geeky. We have a lot of developers, a lot of hacker types using Ubuntu phone as their primary phone or as a secondary phone to play with. Try it out and find out.
Right. So it's the same as on the desktop, really. It is going to depend specifically on the person whether or not it does what they need it to do.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
yeah, absolutely.
The desktop's a little more polished and a little bit more friendly to non-technical people than the phone is at this point, but people seem to get it. I mean, the navigation works really well. People just kind of intuitively get it figured out after only a few minutes of playing with it, really. So really, I think for the phone, it's going to come down to a question of apps. Does it have the apps that your mom wants?
Next question is from a Honeybun. How can a person in a loco take over leadership? I know a poll needs to be held, but if it's real dead, perhaps I could just be held over. So, so this goes back to a comment that Mike made earlier about loco team. So loco stands for local community team, and it's what we call the communities generally geographically confined to a particular country or county or city or some geographic region. And sometimes people move on and move to another distro, or they move to another region, or for whatever reason they stop contributing or stop paying attention to that particular loco, and that's fine. Everyone has other things in their life which may be a priority. He says, I know a poll needs to be held. Well, not necessarily. That entirely depends on the loco. Some locos have rigid constitutions and well-documented processes for electing a leader. Others are more ad hoc and would just say, well, if you want to get involved, get involved. If you want to, participate, then just do it. Just get on with it. So it really depends on the loco, really. So I would ask around, speak to people who have been in that position in that loco team or in other loco teams, and if nobody is willing to step up to take care of that community, then by all means, if you think you've got the skills to do it, step up and do it.
Yeah. So the first step is always to reach out to the people in that loco team to get involved. If there isn't anybody active and you send emails and nobody's replying, then you can take it to the local council and you can ask them if you can get ownership of the team and the mailing list and any other official resources that team had to try and get it restarted. But for you, Aaron, because you're in the Florida team and we do have people around still, just ask us. I don't think anybody's going to object to you being a team leader, given the work that you've been doing recently.
And some locos don't even have a leader. They just they have a point of contact, so that in the event that local business wants to communicate with Ubuntu people, or if Canonical wants to send a message to a loco team, they might have a point of contact, but they might not actually be a leader in terms of pushing the loco in a particular direction, or may not necessarily be anyone there to inspire people, and that's fine. Every loco is different, and each loco is very culturally different as well. So yeah, I would echo what Mike says, to kind of discover what the lay of the land is in your local area first. Okay, next question from Goats Lover. Is Turbo Pascal supported on Ubuntu phone?
No.
Well, you say that.
Officially, no, not for app development.
Not for app development. If you have a really old, crusty version of Turbo Pascal, you can probably run it in DOSBox in an emulator or something. Whether that's supported or not, I will
say this: Python development of apps is also not supported on Ubuntu phone, but there are apps in the store that are written in Python. So just because it's not officially supported doesn't mean it's not actually possible. If some enterprising and slightly crazy person decides that they want to get Turbo Pascal apps working on Ubuntu, there's really not much to stop them other than it being Turbo Pascal.
Yeah, that's one thing I really like about this phone is, we say first-class citizens, or our primary development platform in the SDK is QML and HTML5, but you can also use C++ if you really want to, or and we have this fairly small set of languages that we recommend. But then people go out and do crazy stuff, and there's an app in the store which is written in Java, or has a Java component, has a C++ component, or I think it also has a Python component as well. It's quite wacky. There are others which are ported C++ apps, ported C apps. There's a couple of games which have been ported across that use SDL2. So, it depends, on the word supported means different things to different people. We support HTML5, QML, and you can use C++ as well. But people can bend things a little bit, and as long as you're willing to put a bit of effort in to package things up inside a click package, you'll probably find many more things work than we list on our SDK. Although Turbo Pascal, yeah.
Leave it at that.
Swavek says, the amount of ported devices is rather low. Any plans to improve the porting guide or make it easier for less experienced developers? Well, porting is a tricky thing. It's not a straightforward, insert a CD and boot from it and you're done. It is, by nature of what it is, it's a hard thing to do. We have improved the porting documentation, and I think once we move to Android 5, which will happen, I guess, at some point this year, that might make more devices possible to be ported to, more interesting, newer devices possible to be ported to.
Right. So when we released the first porting guide back in 2013, we were still running Ubuntu in a container on top of Android. And we actually had quite a bit of early interest in porting, and several porting effort started then. Later, when we flipped the containers and we ran Android directly, or we ran Ubuntu directly and Android in a container, that porting guide became obsolete, and it did take us a rather long time to update that porting guide. That was updated earlier this year, I believe. So maybe it's time that we have another push and reach out again to the XDA and the Cyanogen community and try and get those started again, because there was a lot of interest, and maybe we can get some of that interest back.
Yeah, absolutely. Any insights if Canonical, this is from Sid, any insights if Canonical is in conversation with the Fairphone company considering the new Fairphone 2? Ubuntu on the Fairphone seems like the perfect marriage. It does, doesn't it? I don't know. I only just saw the new Fairphone 2 modular phone, which looks really rather cool. I only saw that earlier on today. I don't know if that conversation is being happened, because that happens in another part of the company. And you know,
it seems like the perfect marriage, but we're both upstarts. We're both underdogs. There's a small niche right now of people that want Ubuntu, and there's a small niche of people that want the Fairphone. And looking at an intersection of the two, you're going to have only a part of a small niche of a demographic for that. So it seems like a great idea, but I'm just not sure that there's going to be enough benefit to either side to make it worthwhile when we're already struggling, with Ubuntu's trying to gain market share on traditional OEM devices, and Fairphone's trying to gain market share on traditional OS.
And it's all this reminds me very much of the free software, free hardware kind of people really say they want something, but then practically speaking, what they really want is a device that works. So, someone might say, I really want a fully free software, and free hardware device from top to bottom, but I also want to be able to make phone calls, and I want to connect to the Wi-Fi, and I want, so it's very difficult striking a balance. And I think, I agree with Mike. That would be niche squared.
I think Fairphone's very important, and I think they're probably going to have more success trying to revolutionize the hardware side and not hardware and software at the same time.
Next question. Bowler Frederick says, what year does the panel predict that you'll be able to plug your phone into your TV or Tele Ubuntu box?
So I can plug my phone in to the TV right now. I did mention earlier I have this HDMI dongle. But to get it to actually work as a TV, like the Ubuntu TV prototype, I would guess not any time in at least the next 2 years, if I had to guess.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Aside from the actual work of getting the software on it, which we're in a better position to build an Ubuntu TV now than we were in 2012 when we demoed this, because of all the work that's gone into the phone and now all the work that's gone into Snappy. But the content is still the hard obstacle for us. Getting TV listings, getting access to Netflix might be easier now since it works on Chrome, but just getting the content that people want available is still going to be the hardest part of that, I think.
Right. Well, I think it depends, because, things like Kodi and XBMC are, or XBMC as was, are incredibly popular, and Myth TV as well are incredibly popular and they don't necessarily have the same content deals either. So, it could be that someone could hack a, TV app or a Snappy package that would work on the phone when plugged into a display and give you, remote control access and all that kind of stuff to play back local media. And then later on, once we take over the world, get the content deal.
Yeah. So I can see the software being available in like the next year that would do this.
Mm-hmm.
But as an out-of-the-box solution, something you can buy, I'm still going to say probably 2 years at a minimum.
Cool. We've got a little while left and a few questions. Sid asks, I'm dual booting Ubuntu on Android. Does it use phased updates as well, or am I on the wrong channel? He's on RTM stable Ubuntu. I don't know. I've never done dual boot, so I don't know.
Right. And we did change the channels recently. I think that was announced on the Ubuntu phone mailing list. So it could be that you have to make a change to point to a renamed channel to get that.
Right. I think you also have to update from outside of Ubuntu, don't you? You have to reboot into Android in order to update Ubuntu on the dual boot system, I think. I don't know. Never done it.
All right. When will Ubuntu phone finally sort out the Bluetooth issues? I still cannot connect it to my car system, and this is a serious safety issue. That's a safety? I don't.
No.
Okay.
Turn your phone off if you're driving, or don't pick up the phone when you're driving. That fixes that safety issue. But more seriously, the Bluetooth issues. I don't know if we have bugs filed for this. If you do, then ping me the bug numbers, and we can take a look at them.
Right.
I only have a very old, crusty car that has no Bluetooth, so I have no way of testing that. But I'm sure some people do. But we need to get a bug report raised.
Right. The only Bluetooth devices I have are a speaker and a headset, and both of those work just fine with it.
Right. What's next? Bowler Frederick says, some guy on the internet called John O'Bacon said he'd love to do a reunion Q&A on Reddit. So how about it, guys?
I'd like the fact that Jono misses us. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, sure. That would be awesome.
Yeah, we could have him on as a guest.
Yeah, and we could just spend an hour talking about barbecue. That would be awesome. The fish says...
Really now. He's expanding his culinary repertoire.
Yes, and burning other things instead. Would the bottom edge on the phone be best used as a menu system for the app? File, edit, view. Menus that can be switched between a similar fashion to the items in the indicator menus at the top edge. So the bottom edge is handed over to applications, and the idea is that you, as an app developer, use that for whatever's most appropriate in your application. That could be that you pull up and there's a menu of items there. Could be. It could be a nested menu of some kind. It could be anything like that. Whatever you feel is the most, beautiful and productive use of that edge of the phone. We used to have the toolbar down there, and HUD was invoked from down there. I don't know if that will come back at some point in the future. Who knows?
So I keep being told that the HUD is being redesigned and will come back. And I do know that the design team is also working on menu support, specifically to make sure that desktop apps still have window menus like they always have. Right. So that is coming. I don't think the plan right now is to use the bottom edge for that, because we still want to give that to the app developers to be creative with. But that menus will be coming in some form.
Cool. Sid asks, I'm thinking of using Develop Propose. Michael, can you tell us your experience? What is that like?
So I've been using it for a little while now. I haven't had any major problems. Like I haven't had it stop working as a phone or anything like that. Really, the worst part is sometimes you see new features land that are still buggy, and then a couple releases later, they'll be taken out again while they get redesigned and fixed up again. So Popey mentioned the player controls and the sound indicator. I actually saw those land for a couple of releases, and then they went away. So that's really the only downside to that.
Right. Next question from Euclid asks, USB 3 Seagate external hard disk drive does not spin off. Is it a bug?
So this is a technical support question that Popey mentioned earlier. We will kick over to somebody who can actually help you, because we're not the best people for that.
Yeah.
So you can ask in #Ubuntu. That is the official IRC support channel, or you can file both in Launchpad, or both.
However,
probably is the best option.
That said, there is a command called HD Palm, which you can use to set the spin down time on a device, and I have that set on my machine, which is just out of sight over there, so that all the disks spin down when they're not busy. HD Palm. Look at the man page; that might help you. Or search for Ask Ubuntu HD Palm spin down, and you'll probably find an answer. Just Caracas asks, any update on VoIP? No.
I don't have one anyway.
Nope. Next question.
It looks like everybody was just talking about Pascal from there.
Ah, Pascal. I love Turbo Pascal. I was just thinking the other day, I wrote some stuff in Turbo Pascal about 20 years ago, and I was just thinking, I wonder where that code is. I sometimes wish that there was a GitHub 20 years ago, despite there not being internet.
There was SourceForge, so it might be distributed with adware now.
My rubbish Turbo Pascal programs wrapped up in a terrible, terrible, terrible wrapper.
I've got some really old Perl programs, like Perl GUI programs on SourceForge. So if they've taken over those and put adware on them, the adware is probably the best part of those now.
I was going to say, this time next year, you'll be rich if they share it. Okay, well, that seems like a good point to wrap up as we run through the questions and we start meandering into Turbo Pascal. So thank you, everyone, for your super questions and conversation in IRC. If you missed it this week and you're watching this on YouTube, then feel free to join us next Tuesday at 1500 UTC. It may not be me and Mike, it may be someone else from the community team. And
if you want to go back and watch any other videos, you can go to the Ubuntu On Air YouTube channel and see everything that we've done on this website well into the past, and you can watch it for future episodes also. And you can follow us on Twitter. We are at Ubuntu On Air to get updates on upcoming shows.
And also remember to look at the Southeast Linux Fest videos, because the one from Rick and Mike and Ken are worth watching.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone. See you, Mike.
Bye.